the veterans of the team, Mr. and Mrs. Agumbiade. Let's give it up for them. Woo! Hey. So they've been married for 12 years. They met in church, and they have 2 wonderful children. Femi is a producer, and Fumi is a pharmacist. Their love is just so strong, especially when they sing together. You can just, you can see, you can sense the radiation,
yes,
like coming through.
Like heaven just comes down.
It comes all the way down. But we're excited to have Fumi and Femi here. We also have Dr. and Dr. Onijala. They've been married for...
Dr. Squared, yeah.
Dr. Squared. They've been married for 9 years. They met in school, pharmacy school. They have 3 children, and of course, they're both pharmacists. We're excited for them to be here. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right, what about us? Go ahead and introduce us.
Sure. Introducing the king of Zamunda. And
I don't even know why. I just said that. I
don't know. I'm going to tell me to introduce us. Well, hi, this is Wale and Yemisi. All right, we've been married for 10 years, 1 month, 11 days, and 26 hours.
All right.
We met in church, too. Foundation class. Yemisi is a public health analyst. She's a life coach, relationship expert. She's a business owner.
That's That's okay. You're already getting a treat tonight. You don't gotta overdo it. You don't gotta overdo it. Okay. And you are?
You gotta introduce me.
Okay. So Wale is a tailor-made chef, a tailor-made pastor. He's a database engineer. He's a chef. He does it all. He's a stylist. He's a singer. He's an actor.
All right, you're getting a treat too tonight.
All right, so we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to have a discussion. All right, guys? We know how we do it when we go out to dinner. We've all been out to dinner before, and we know how much fun we have. We're going to give people a glimpse into some of the things we talk about during our date nights.
Everything?
Not everything. Not everything.
Like, all right, good night.
But, you know, most of the things we want to, you know, kind of just dive in and be comfortable. You guys ready?
Yeah. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
All right. So let's talk about how we knew our spouse was the one. So how did you guys know? Let me start with the veterans. How did you guys know? And I'm not going to call you guys veterans throughout the whole session. How did you guys know? Well, Femi, how did you know Fumi was the one? And Fumi, how did you know Femi was the one?
So I had a dream. No, why you already laughing? Everybody knows that stuff. It's so weird. It's like the way it happened. It was when you say that phrase, the scales drop from your eyes. It's literally what kind of happened. I mean, we've been friends, same church, same choir, and everything. And then one day during drama rehearsal, the light just hit her a certain way, and I was like, ew.
That light.
But yeah, it's like, I hate using the phrase love at first sight because it's not that simple, but something clicked right there. And then getting to know her, spending time with her, she actually became my best friend. So yeah,
Wow.
it was a no-brainer.
Okay, so it was a no-brainer for you. So how did you decide to actually be with him?
Okay. So before we were ever talking or anything, I was in a previous relationship and that didn't work out. So when I got out of it, it's funny, not even less than 2 weeks after I got out of that relationship, I was sitting right here in the back of church, and Femi was walking from the stage towards the door. And I kid you not, I got a very strong impression that that was my husband. And I was like, wait, what? I was all kinds of confused by that because, again, we knew mutual people, but like there was nothing ever. So I didn't say anything to anyone. I just kind of kept it to myself. Another time we went out for his birthday, just again, we had mutual friends. And I got that impression again. And I was like,
so
okay.
when you say you got that impression, was it because of what he said?
Nope.
His
Nope.
swag? Nothing?
Nope. Nothing.
It was Okay.
It was just like a knowing. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
So I started after the second time I prayed about it. I started really praying about it. Like, what does that mean or whatever? Like, I don't even see him like that. I'm not attracted to him. It wasn't anything. So I got it again a third time. Again, didn't say anything to anyone. So when he kind of, approached me, asked me out, again, I was shocked by that whole situation. We went out on a few dates. I liked him as a person. I thought he was hilarious. I thought he was a good guy. Prior to this, by the way, I'd written my list of top 10 things I wanted in a husband.
That list. We all have, ladies, we all have that list, right?
So when, as we were talking, I couldn't reconcile the fact that I'm like, I got this impression, but I'm not attracted to him. I don't know. I couldn't reconcile it. So we had a conversation about it. It was a blow to him.
Come on, dog.
We kind of, so I took some time to just really think through it, pray through it. And I don't know. It's like, we were like, okay, let's take it real. And not that we were taking anything fast. We're like, let's just keep hanging out. Let's see how things go. And I don't know. Something happened. I started to see him in a different light. And I'm like, he checks all my boxes, and then, the rest is history, as they say. So.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. What about your journey? How was your journey? Because you all didn't meet in church.
Right.
How did it all start?
Well, Lara used to sit behind me in pharmacy school.
Okay.
And
you weren't paying attention, huh?
I wasn't paying attention. Like, especially during our first year of pharmacy school, I wasn't even really interested or anything. But one day,
the reason why you weren't interested?
probably in previous relationship and
okay,
have to
so
think.
you were
Like you remind me of a girl that I was.
Oh man! And one day we were in it was statistics class, and she walked by, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, pursue.
That's prophetic right there.
That's how it was, and I was like, man, okay, I need to try with this right here. And after that point in time, I did everything possible to pursue her and really see and make sure that, hey, this is the person. And after we started dating in our relationship, I knew immediately, like, this is the person that I need to be with and marry. It's just I had to make sure that she felt the same way,
Right. Okay. And Lyle, what's your version of the story? Did you hear not the pursuit? What's the opposite of pursuit? Be chased.
No, I did not.
Okay.
With Dapo, honestly, he wasn't my type. He wasn't my type. I'm not gonna get into that, but he just wasn't the type of guy that I would, fall for. Yeah. But I was attracted to him, though. As far as physically, he I thought he was handsome, but I guess just everything else, he wasn't my type. But I like.
That's the real question. If I wasn't your type, how did I get you?
Like I said.
Gang. Ladies and gentlemen, gang.
Boom.
He did have this swag about him.
Yes.
And like he said, he did everything. He did everything he could to, get me, and he got me. And
yes. So
everything just felt right with him. I had no worries, no doubts. Everything, since when I gave him a chance, everything felt right.
Wow. So it seems like in both scenarios, he wasn't your type, but he became your type with time. So I guess we shouldn't be looking for our type only, but to be open for possibilities.
Well, it reminds me of someone.
Who?
Come on.
Hey.
that
Do you want to
She's
tell? You can
wearing
share.
a yellow shirt.
Spill that tea.
She's sitting right next
Why
to
don't
me.
you share? Why don't you share your experience or your story about
All right.
how
So every time we talk about our story, how we met, there's her story, there's my story, and then there's a real story. So, because of what we're doing today, real stories, real couple, I'm going to talk about the real story.
Please do.
So, I was leading praise and worship one Sunday, and as I was leading praise and worship, I just looked into the crowd and I saw someone falling under the anointing.
Come on now.
Tell the truth, baby.
All right.
Tell the truth.
So I was sitting upstairs in church, all right, the real story. And my friend and I, Ayabami, we were I think I just gotten out of a relationship as well. And we were sitting upstairs, and GNN, our Good News Network, which is known as RAM TV now, came on, and they were advertising a singles conference, and this lady came on screen, and she was talking about the singles conference. I think it was Feel the Fire, and I was like, man, I'm feeling your fire. Like, like I looked at Ayabami, and I was like, wow, like, she comes to this church? Like, okay, let's go. I was like, I'm going to that singles event, and I remember going to the event, and she wasn't there. So I said, maybe, she was late or something. So I waited till the next event they had, and she still wasn't there. And I was like, man, this is false advertising. This lady's not there. So I gave up looking, and I decided to take a class in church called Foundational Class. And once I entered the class, sitting across the room was this lady I've been looking for all my life. And as I walked into the class, I think, our eyes just met, and she was just like,
No,
like there's a seat next to her.
This is where I'm going to take over. Everything he said prior to that is true. I did not say come and sit here. You made your way to come and sit next to me. Let's be clear. And when I first saw him, because I had seen him in church, and he was part of the dance ministry, flipping from upstairs, doing backflips, and I was just like,
so I wasn't your type.
You was not my type. I actually thought you were much younger with me. I remember calling my sister and telling her right after that class, like, oh my gosh, there's this sweet guy that came into our foundation class, and he just kept glowing. Mind you, I didn't know why he was smiling. I was like, he just kept smiling at me like, I think I want to mentor him. I think I want to mentor him.
Is that what you're going with? You want to mentor
because
him?
I thought he was at
Seriously?
least 5 years younger than me, just because he was so active. He has a baby face, but he had a baby face then. And I was just like, this is so sweet. He has a crush. And she was like, yeah, we'll find out what he wants to do. Maybe you can't. You like mentoring people. Maybe you can mentor him. And then he spoke to me, a couple of times, and we decided to study together for foundation class. And, I think that's it, right? Am I missing anything?
You got it.
Okay. So that's how we met. All right. So we talked about the list. I also had a list, and after I got to know him, he did meet I think my list was about 107.
107.
Yes.
Are you
Yeah, come on
exaggerating?
No, she's serious.
I'm not even
100.
joking.
Wow.
Because when you
on
go
Excel?
through things.
Like,
No, actually, what happened was I wrote it
It was
out.
on a piece of paper.
It was on a piece of paper.
Yes.
And this was at the time where Oprah was talking about write your list. And I had been through so many things. I'm like, if his name starts with this letter, I'm good. If it's this, and that, because I didn't want, I know, it's crazy. But thankfully, his name started with the right letter, and everything else on the list he met. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and move forward with this. But anyway, so we talked about the list, guys, and we talked about how meeting things on our list are important. When we finally got into the marriage part, were there things, even if we didn't have a written list, right, expectations that we had that were not met going into the marriage? Especially, let's narrow it down to the first 3 years. Do you think there were expectations that we had as women and men that weren't met in the first couple of years of marriage? Why and why not? So let's start with the Onijalas.
So for me, when we were dating in pharmacy school, Dapo used to send me on scavenger hunts, and I'll end up in my locker and I have this gift. He used to write me love letters. This man wrote me a love letter in Yoruba.
Okay.
So many surprises, like Valentine's Day, anniversary. He would have things planned weeks before. So I was expecting all of that and more when we got married. And don't get me wrong, he still continued, but it slowed down. It wasn't to the extent of.
Come on, man.
All right. Why did it slow down? Let's be realistic. Why did it slow down?
Life gets busy on you. You got kids come, and I think I still try to plan the best that I can for the most part. But yeah, it's when you're chasing after something, and but yeah, that's true actually. What she said is true.
Do you think you had some expectations that she didn't meet in the first 3 years?
Man, let's see.
dun, 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 dun.
So yeah. food every day. But I quickly learned that it wasn't going to be every day. It probably wasn't a realistic expectation.
When you say food every day, like there were some days you didn't.
Home cooked.
Oh,
man.
home cooked meals.
You know.
Come on now. Come on. Okay.
It's all good though.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And I it seems like you were able to adjust and make it through.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
What about you guys? Were there some unrealistic expectations, especially the first 3 years?
It's weird that, okay, so the question is that weren't met.
Yes. Or unrealistic?
I don't know. It's weird because we spent a lot of time before the marriage asking a lot. How many kids do we want when we decide to have kids? Also, our families, we love each other, so we hang out. We used to hang out a lot, so we get to observe each other a lot. Okay, okay, this is what ticks this person off, or this is, this is something that this person doesn't like, that kind of thing. So I don't know if I can say anything wasn't met.
Yeah, I would say the same for me. I can't think of anything specific. He's right in that we asked a lot of questions. We hung out a lot in groups and by ourselves, and I think there's something to be said for time and being very observant, because there are things people tell you, and there are things that you see. Yeah. And you gotta shine your eyes, as they say. So I think based off of that, I think we pretty much knew what we were getting into. Like for instance, even like the food thing, I observed. He didn't tell me this, but I observed that this dude likes a nice warm meal every day. I very quickly said, well, that ain't gonna happen.
Wow.
I don't like leftovers.
He doesn't like leftovers. He's very particular about how his food looks, and he's passed that on to Angie, our first daughter. She's very particular. If it looks a certain, I don't want it.
So how did that conversation go? And I guess what I want to know is, after you all discussed it, how did you feel? Because that was something that you've always wanted. How did you guys come to a compromise? Did you just let it go?
Well, I think, thank God for that, because I'm not really like really traditional guy was like, 3 meals and the woman goes to the kitchen, all of that stuff. Because I sort myself out, which is probably a bad thing. Like she had to okay, enough with the junk food and all of that stuff. Yeah. But she cooks, and my wife throws down too. But it wasn't really an expectation that my wife needs to cook all the time. The main thing for me was that it had to look a certain, it needs to look like how it looks at a restaurant. Like if I just see it just mixed up like that, I don't know what it is. It's probably some psychological thing I need to deal with. Or if I do happen to, and then I realize, okay, look, the leftovers thing, come on, man. Like, you got to eat leftovers, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's still a weird quirk with me. Like, okay, if I take it out, I have to microwave it like it needs to be on fire.
I don't even let him in the kitchen. I'm just like, no, he can't see it the way it is in the pot. I gotta make it look nice.
Wow.
Otherwise, he won't eat it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we know now. If we're ever inviting them over to our home, it gotta be fresh, and it gotta be plated really well. Did you want to add anything? Any expectations? You can be free.
All right. I think they touched on.
You can be free. And then she turned.
Wait, but do I still get that stuff later?
Yes, you still
All
get
right. So, well, for me, I think one of the unrealistic expectations I had was that sex was going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
Meaning, it was just going to be on demand. Like, yeah, you want it and you. But I think quickly I had to learn that, a woman's body goes through different things. There's the mood, there's the setting it up, there's the layup before you don't. There are certain things you need to get to before you get to a certain place.
Are we supposed to talk about this? Are we open?
Yes.
Yes?
No.
Okay, look at the
Come
guys.
on now, real stories, real stories.
No, and I think this will help some young men because, as well. So, all right, I'm going to cut a little bit deeper.
Come on now.
I struggled with pornography. So as a young man struggling with pornography, when I'm thinking, oh, my wife is going to be able to do all these things that I've seen them do on TV and on realistic stuff. And
whereas his wife has never seen a pornography video, so I don't even know what they do, and I can't even meet their expectations. Well, okay, all right, maybe BET a little bit, but you know, I mean, it's true though, because if you don't know what he's expecting, it's very difficult to meet that expectation.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So for me, it had to be a come to Jesus moment for me. Like, hey, you know what? This is unrealistic. I mean, I'm even going to laugh about one. You know, when you see the movies where they just get home and they take off their clothes, get in the shower.
No morning breath.
No morning breath.
They wake up with their wig on, you know, everything together. Yeah.
But I had to understand that was unrealistic. I mean, you can't. So I think we struggled a lot in the beginning. I didn't tell her, but in my heart, I was like, she's not meeting my demand. So I'll tell her, oh, I'm not being satisfied sexually. I'm not being this. But the truth of the matter is I had unrealistic expectations of what she was meant to be doing. So
yeah, and I think we kind of learned, you know, after he never expressed that, but there were some things that I did. I can remember one time vividly that, you know, I was like, oh, let me turn on the radio, right? Do you remember this? And I turned on the radio, and what song was playing? Do you remember? It was a worship song, and I was like, yes. And he was like, babe, turn it off. Turn it off. I just wanted to play anything, right? He was just like, that's not it. That's not it. So I learned that. So now we have a radio station on Parenthood that we already know. This is the only thing we listen to. When it starts moving to Marvin Sapp, we like, okay, turn it off. But we love Marvin Sapp. All right. You know, one thing that I'm thinking about expectation is, you know, sometimes when you jump into a relationship, there's some things that you're like, oh man, I probably should have asked this before, right? Especially when it comes to your health. Did you all feel the need to talk about health and take tests prior to getting married? And if you did, when did you have that conversation? So let's start with the Agumbia days. So I'm talking about tests like STD tests, sickle cell tests, things like that. Did you have a conversation about it? Did you take a test?
We didn't. Yeah, we didn't. No, we didn't have conversations about it because. Well, hold on. I'll explain. The reason is maybe I'll let you speak to it because it's from your end. Because I was always told what my blood type was, and you know, I believe my mama.
Yes, but blood type doesn't have anything to do with STDs, though.
Oh well, I was actually a really good Christian.
Good Christian. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I won't lie
okay.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna say it wasn't hard. Wale, we were in the same. Yeah. We were living together. Like, we kept each other.
We were good boys.
Yeah, we were good. But I was a good Christian, but I wasn't doing nothing.
Okay.
We weren't proud boys, but we're good boys.
Okay, so Fumi, tell us about your thought process, because you're also in the health field. So I think sometimes people from the health background, they have a different perspective, right? They want to go the extra mile to make sure they're very cautious because they know what the repercussions could be. Mm-hmm. So what was your journey?
This is true, and at the time we were dating, I wasn't in the health field, but we did talk about it. I think we didn't take STD tests, but that's because, you know, we talked about like our history as to whether we've been with other people. And I think, you know, part of it is being young and ignorant. But there was a lot of trust there. So, you know, prior to coming into marriage, I hadn't been with anyone in that way. And, you know, we talked about his history as well. In hindsight, that's something we definitely should have done, regardless, because you can't really take people. Not that you shouldn't trust people, but you just never know. So I think the wise thing to do is to take those tests beforehand. You know, I'm not going to sit here and think that we all have different journeys and we're all on different paths. So some people may not have had sex before marriage, and some people have. I think if you're in a relationship, I mean, obviously, you know, as a Christian, as a born-again Christian, you really should abstain from sex before marriage. But as you are talking about getting married and you're talking about, you know, getting engaged, I think that that's a good point to go ahead and take those tests, regardless of the person's history. If you are currently, again, not to be naive and think that everyone watching, you know, again, everyone has different journeys. So if you're currently in a relationship and you are sexually active, again, the best thing is abstinence, because as children of God, we know that sex outside of marriage is a sin. But if you are, you haven't taken tests, this is a good time to do that, because it's about life and death. When it came to being like the blood type, like him, I believe my mama. Mom, I'm sorry. My mom told me that I was AA. I was like, oh, cool. So I never did. And then when I was pregnant with my first child, they were like, can you bring your husband in? Because you're a carrier. And I was like, oh, my Lord. So, I mean, thank God everything panned out. But, you should, my advice to anyone is take all the tests you need to take, because it's the wise thing to do.
How did you guys approach it?
I would agree with that in terms of taking all the tests you can take. I know that for us, I didn't take any kind of STD or test like that, because I'm good. Yeah, that's how I felt, right? But while in school, though, I did take my blood test, a blood test, and so I was able to know at that point that, oh man, I have a trait or whatever, and so it was important for me to let my future wife know that, hey, this is it. You might want to go ahead and make sure, if you don't already know, on your own. But I agree with what Fumi said. It's really important that you take your test, you understand, because you just never know. The world we live in right now, it's really important. You don't want to do something to terribly hurt your future.
Okay. What did you want to talk about? What we did?
Yeah, go ahead. You do.
So we took a test because I knew he had. Did you have the? I knew that there was potential for him to have the sickle cell trait, because there were people in his family who had sickle cell, and he was very upfront and honest about it. And I didn't even know what. I don't know if it's like growing up here. Sickle cell is not something that Like when people say, "Oh, I'm AA," I'm like, what is that? I don't know anything about that. But we did take a test. We talked about it. But I do know it's a difficult conversation to have, and it's a difficult test to take. Truth be told, even before I was sexually active, I took an HIV test just to go through the process. My heart was racing. And I'm like, why is your heart? You haven't done nothing. Why are you scared? But there's something about waiting for results. Yep. And, there's a possibility that something happened while I was sleeping. You just don't know. So I understand the hesitation of not wanting to take a test, but it's so important, because you want to make sure you're going into this situation very open and honest, and Absolutely. Both parties knows what's happening.
So when do you advise someone take the test?
You asking me? As soon as possible. Like, I think you should know yourself. So you should take the test for your own knowledge. But I think when talking to someone, if you are trying to be serious with this person, the earlier the better. And it's a difficult conversation to have, but once you get over that hump, you're good. And if that person knows you, and I think you should express that you would like your partner to take the test, but you should also offer to take the test. And if there's some hesitation, then you need to start praying about some things, and then ask for wisdom. Both of you, not
absolutely.
Just one person. We had no problem taking the test, and then not just telling, but showing with a seal. We actually opened up the envelope together, because I was
I've
like,
taken some hard tests in my life.
Yeah,
but
he has. He has. And I was like, I don't want no accident.
You didn't want no positive.
All right. So I'm glad we talked about the foundation. Now, moving forward, have you all always lived in the same place since you've been married? Have you been in the same country? Have you guys been in the same country? What do you guys think about your spouse living in a different country?
Honestly, for me, you mean in terms of maybe getting a new job?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, and the person is in another country and you are, so Doc was in another country, but you are here.
Yeah, I believe a married couple should be together. It's just, for things to work for us, I'm just speaking for myself, I think it's important to be together. So, of course, if he tells me that he has a job, he found a job in another country, it would be something I'll pray and fast about, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go with him. Yeah. Because we're all packing together, and we're moving together. Yeah.
Okay, what about you guys?
Yeah, no, same. I think it's really important to be together. And if he said he got a job somewhere else, I would pray and fast and say, God, was that really you? But if it came down to it, then I would move. I would say that I know a lot of people are in situations where they cannot be together for various reasons, and that's tough. It's hard on a marriage. But I think the key thing is, I haven't been in that situation, but I know people who have. And one of the things that they say is to really, really keep those lines of communication open, and you need to draw the person into your world in a way. So if you went out on a certain day, hung out with maybe a group of friends, or you picked up a new activity, you need to tell those stories to your partner so they don't feel so distant. And you can continue to keep those lines of communication open. And just continue to pray and have an accountability partner wherever you are.
Yeah, that's key.
Because you know, temptation is everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere. Chicken heads everywhere. Chicken heads everywhere.
So and on both ends, not just the guy, but even the woman. You need to have godly counsel. You need to have an accountability partner so that you don't fall just because your spouse is not right there with you. So those are the things that
I agree.
Gathered from people I know who aren't together.
And you mentioned communication, so I want us to shift us to the next, place. What is your communication? Let me start with you, baby. What is your communication style?
I feel it, I say it.
Okay. Okay, you feel it, you say it. Okay. No filter, as you can see. Okay.
No, but I'm learning to communicate more now. Now, I grew up trying to shelter my emotions or try and hide things under the rug. And I think it's because I used to have a very bad anger problem. So if anything happened, especially when we got married, I try and sweep things under the rug. And
because you're trying not to get angry and get to that place.
But eventually, I think it was maybe year 3 or something, I think I'd swept so much under the rug that I tried to sweep one more thing, and I blew up. I think I called Femi, then I was like, man, I can't believe I got this angry.
And I couldn't believe it either. Like, who is this man? Who is this?
The way it came out, I threw myself. It was deep, and it's something I had to learn, and I'm not afraid to admit that we had to go through counseling.
Yeah.
We had to go see a therapist.
A licensed therapist.
A licensed therapist, a professional to help us.
He got problems. I got problems too. We all got problems, but man.
But I had to.
Like that phone cost over $800. You just do that phone? Yeah. We need to figure out a better way to discuss this. But I appreciate your vulnerability. But he was open enough to say, when I suggested it, like, if this is how you react, we need to see somebody, because I don't want it to get any further and then have, other consequences. And unlike most men, he was like, okay, let's try it out. And I think we went to a couple of sessions. We put it all out there. And I will say it was very helpful for us. It
was tough, man.
It was tough. Yeah, it was tough. Like the car rides home, we were like, just because it's, it brings up so many things that you don't even realize are there, right? What's your communication style?
You want to?
Well, for me, I come from a family where we are so close. We tell each other everything. I tell my brother everything. My sisters, my parents, we talk about everything. So that's pretty much how I approached our marriage too. So I tell Dakpo everything. Sometimes I get too excited and I'm loud and I talk so loud, and Dakpo is always like, calm down. Calm it down.
I'm right next to you. Why are you shouting?
So him not so much. A lot of times I feel like I have to pull things out of him. But
yeah, that's facts actually, because I tend to internalize things before I express myself. I've gotten better. I will say, I know that early in our marriage, just because of even times when I grew up, I would just keep things within me. Like I can fix it on my own. I can communicate internally and then pull it out there. But that's improved simply because of her. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. What's your communication style?
Well, I'm very, very literal. And that could be a good thing, but if for someone like Fumi is very expressive and talks with her feelings. So if, for instance, now Fumi will say something like, "Oh, you always do that." I'm like, "What do you mean by, look, do you know what, no, when I said always, I mean that you do it, no, the word always. Let me tell you what always means, it always, yeah, so, and, that became like a real, like we'll be having a conversation, and we'll have an argument, and I will just be hung up on one word.
Yeah.
Oh,
so what is that word? What is that word?
that's silly. Oh, so I'm silly. No, I didn't. No, the word silly.
Yeah,
Go to the, and then when you go into these debates, I'll say stuff like, I mean, I'm a lot better now, and I think it's just understanding how the other person communicates. Like for me, we'll say something. It's look, I'm trying to talk about the context. I'm not. Don't get hung up on the word, right? Yeah. And I'll say stuff like, oh, if we go to a court right now with 10 people, they are going to side with me because they know what the word always means. And it was just this, like, yeah. So I think the more we actually worked on it, and look, just call it when I say something or when I communicate, this is what I mean. This is my style. Now when she's talking, I can read between the lines.
That's with experience. Did he hit it on the?
He can read between the lines. I love that. I love that. Yeah, he got it all right. Like I'm an empath, so I feel deeply and I communicate that way. And as he has said, he's very literal. So we try to work on it. Really. Okay.
Are there any words that just triggers you and you're like, it takes you to another place in your marriage?
We need to talk.
I was going to say, I don't know what it is, and we're a lot better now. Like I tell her, but once I hear, I'll tell her, look, if you want to talk to me about something, just say, Femi, this. Don't say, Femi, we need to talk.
Why? Is it because you know you're about to get in trouble? So that's what it is.
I'm right here watching TV. Femi, we need to talk. All the defenses start coming. Okay, let me line all my bullets. Oh, I must have done something. Okay, let's get ready. Like, you just start from a very defensive. I don't know. Yeah. It's like for guys, and I think I'm not the only guy. There's just something when you hear we need to talk, we immediately think, oh, what did I do?
What did I do wrong? Yes.
Coach D, is that the same thing with you?
There's words like a phrase. Oh, you'll never change. Do the same thing over and over and over. Over and over and over, So that's a trigger. Like, then I get defensive.
Okay, so we need to talk, and you would never change. Yeah. What about for us, ladies?
Sorry, for me, every time I want to say something and I get excited, my tone does, I get loud, And then when he tells me, why are you so loud? Oh, that gets me all the time. That gets me all the time. So that just changes my mood completely.
It does.
So
I can understand that. Are there any words that really get you to that place for me?
It's not necessarily a word, but kind of like what he said, when he will say things like, if we go to the court of law and there's 10 people on the jury, all 10 will side with me. It always made me feel like something is wrong with me. Yeah. Maybe I'm not normal, or like maybe I'm not, the way I process things may not be normal. So that would make me kind of question myself. But we had conversations about it, and I'm like, listen, you could say all that or whatever, but at the end of the day, I have my perspective and you have yours. We need to find common ground, and we need to do it in a way that's safe for the other individual, so that they don't leave there feeling like something is inherently wrong. So
I totally get that. I think for me, in the very beginning, when we were still trying to figure each other out, it's like, maybe we should just get a divorce. What? He said that
I said that once, babe.
You said it like twice. You said it like twice.
I only remember once.
You remember once because you're the one that said it. I'm the one that heard it. He said it like twice, and I'm like, for me, my parents went through a divorce, so that's like the extreme. But I think because he was trying to figure out how to communicate some things, and like he said, he pushed a lot of things under the rug. When he finally expressed himself, it was like the extreme. And I'm like, dude, we right here. Why you all the way over there? And he's like, well, I didn't mean that, but you said it. Like,
no, the reason it was so scary to me was I said, okay, maybe we need it because we were talking on the phone. And she said, okay, fine. And she hung up. I was like,
I mean, you talking about it. Let's.
I'm like, oh, God, I'm sorry.
But we've learned over time that, there's some key words that just don't work. I think another thing that helped us with our communication is learning our love languages. Are we all familiar with, love language, 5 love languages? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is your love language, real quick? Well, actually, not what is your love language. What is her love language?
You're going to do that on
live. Thank you. What's her love language?
No, seriously. Acts of service, right? Oh.
Good job.
Acts of service. And, it goes neck and neck with something else.
Words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Coach D.
I think this one's easy. words of affirmation and acts of service.
Okay. What's my love language?
It's acts of service and gifts, right?
The other way around, but
Gifts and acts of service.
yes.
That's the thing too, because your love language changes
Over
Like,
time.
You
Yeah.
started with
Started
gifts,
off with
right?
gifts, but now
Yeah.
with kids, I really need help.
Yeah. I think that's important to note that it changes over time. And mine's changed and then went back and then and I think it's okay to understand it as long as we know. I'm not going to ask the ladies because we already know what their love language is. But I think it's important to note that there is a love language and we need to be flexible, right? To know that even though her love language may have been words of affirmation 2 years ago, now it might be something else, quality time or touching or whatever it may be, right? All right. Okay. Have you all had any, and you don't have to go into the details, but tell us about any major arguments that you guys have had and how did you resolve it? You don't have to go into the details about what it was about, but I know, and we can start off. Like we've had, and he talked about the example where he really blew up, and I just was so confused because I'm like, he's so mellow. And see, the problem with mellow people that everybody love is that once they do, flip out, it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I'm not gonna lie. I really had to call up my mentor, and this was like at 11 o'clock.
No, later.
Yeah, I think it was maybe
11, and he ended up leaving.
Yeah, because he came around 12, and he didn't leave till 3 o'clock. And I was like,
In the
today
morning.
we are going to settle this thing because this whole thing with throwing this $800 phone and things happening, it's not gonna happen. And for us, I think we needed an outside party to kind of come in because it was so heated. And I'm from Chicago. And once I get to that place, I don't want to ever get to the place where I need to express myself in the way that I learned from the streets on how to express myself.
Chi-town.
Yes. That one knows 'cause he's from the Midwest. There's a place that once you get to it, it's like, there's no coming back. You just got to go all the way, and then you face the repercussions later. So we had to call our mentor, and we were like, you need to come over. He's like, can we talk? I said, no, this is not a over the phone conversation. You need to come here now. And he did. He came about 30, 45 minutes. He stayed and he talked with us until like about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I thought it was helpful.
No, it was. And I actually want to plug that in, that it's very good to have mentors,
Right.
Especially marriage mentors. For a young couple growing up, we still have marriage mentors still today. But it was very key that even though we both weren't seeing eye to eye, because at that point I just didn't know, there was no going back. I've thrown the phone. I think I got in the car. I was going to drive off, but I was like, man, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm going to do. So I'm like, where am I going to go? So I couldn't drive off. So I stayed in the car and I waited for him to get there. But it was at that point, that tense moment, and thank God we had someone we could call to come and show up at that time.
Yeah, so for us it was, when we got to that extreme, bringing a mentor in. What do you guys do?
So I can't really think of a time that we've had a major fight, but honestly, like last month, Dapo was watching a football game, Dallas Cowboys. So,
Absolutely,
yeah, we all know
to the
about
core,
it.
to the core.
So they weren't doing so good. So I think I came from upstairs and I was excited about something, and I started talking to him, and the response I got back was, he was so moody at that time. So what he said to me, I didn't like it. So I just went off. I said some words I shouldn't have. I called him names. I was a little disrespectful, And after I did, I just stomped upstairs, But as soon as I got upstairs, something said, Lyle, you better get back downstairs. Get back downstairs and apologize to that man. Because as soon as I went back downstairs and I tried to butter him up and
It didn't work.
it took a while because he was upset. He was already upset.
But
you
mentioned something. You mentioned that you knew what you did immediately, and you said you were disrespectful, because we're going to talk about respect too, because I know respect for men is really, really key. But you mentioned that you knew you were disrespectful.
Yes.
You went upstairs and something told you to come back, and you did it.
Yes.
A lot of people don't do it, right?
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to, no, this one you will know. He would, the next time, in fact, he would even beg me before you know what I mean? But it just shows, and I don't know if it's because you're so mature in your marriage and your relationship, or you value your relationship or him that much, but it takes a lot, especially when you feel like you've been hurt, you respond, and now you have to apologize about how you responded because of what was unintentional or intentionally done to you. So I love the fact that you brought that up. And how did it work out? Okay.
Oh yeah, we're here today. So yeah. No, but there's a maturity factor that you mentioned that's really true. And even in myself, if I'm getting angry or upset, there's something that convicts you that what you just did right then and there was wrong, that you need to go back. And that's something that probably wouldn't have happened 8 years ago, right, or something like that. But as you grow in your marriage, as you grow together, as you grow as one, you start to learn a little bit more about the other person. And even as you grow, as a child of God, that there's something that convicts you that, what you just said right there, you should never say that.
Yeah, I love that. What about you guys?
It's funny that you bring up that example because we've had a similar situation. I can't think of anything specifically, but earlier on in our marriage, again, me being someone who feels deeply, while I could express my emotions at the time when I was younger, I felt like there was a level of immaturity where I didn't know how to articulate them. So I would do things to show how hurt I was. Like, for instance, I would go upstairs. Femi hates it if you slam the door. But I would
Slam it twice.
and I was stop just he needs to know. But then you're right. I would get so convicted by that. As soon as I do it, I'm like, oh, it just, we might have been on level 10. Now this just took it to level 100, So, I have to come back and apologize and eat my words or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, as you said, over time you mature, in your relationship with God, you grow into, and you think about the character and the fruit of the Spirit and how does that shape out in your marriage? And so, in trying to be a better child of God, I tried to be a better communicator with him and just saying, listen, this is exactly how I feel, and really just letting go of those immature, types of reactions.
Yep. Anything you want to add, babe?
No, I mean, you're right.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
I love that. You're right. All right. And that brings me to my next question. Just yes and no. Do you ever feel like you always have to win the argument today? Not then when we first got married, but now we're experienced in this, this game called marriage. Not a game, but in this journey called marriage. Do you ever feel that you always have to be right today, Lyle?
No, but can I explain?
Yes.
No, I don't always have to be right, but I want you to understand my points. I want you to get what I'm saying. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, I do not. No explanation.
Okay.
So you said the word always.
Oh,
so
gosh.
the
I
word-
forgot. I forgot who I was talking to. Okay.
No.
No. Okay.
No for me.
No.
No for me with an explanation. Like Lyle, I always want you to understand
Right.
that
I agree.
reason why, but I'll go your way, but I don't have to be right.
Yeah, me too. And I think that I don't know if that was always the case for us, right? No, it wasn't. Because in the beginning, because you hear, set the tone of your relationship from the beginning. If you allow him to disrespect you from the beginning, you will see Pepper in year 7.
I will say, in the beginning, I didn't want to be right either, necessarily, but I wanted to be heard. I always wanted to be heard, at least hear my point of view.
Yeah.
It may not be the right thing,
But I want you to hear me.
I want to hear
Not
me.
just listen,
Yeah, but
hear
hear
me.
me.
Okay.
Yeah, and nobody wants to feel like they're not heard or, feel like they've been dismissed. Like one of the things that we used to have real problems with, is even the apology. I hate it when it's like, okay, I'm sorry, but once I hear but,
Once you hear but, yeah.
you ain't sorry. Just say I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but. No.
All right. Okay. I love it. I love this conversation. We can go on and on about communication because we all know that communication is the key to any successful relationship, and it doesn't even have to be a marriage or a romantic relationship. Just having friendships, communicating is key. All right. Let's take it up a notch. We're turning up the heat a little bit, okay? We're talking about sex and intimacy, okay?
Oh, I had no idea where you were going.
We talked about us not being on the same pages sometimes. How does that affect our intimacy? And okay, so there is a difference between intimacy and sex, right? So I don't want to use those two words interchangeably. How does our conflict or disagreements impact our sexual activity? Okay, all right. I'm gonna let her go first because she took a deep breath. Like, or does it? It might not affect it at all.
You the one who was breathing.
You the one who was breathing. Go ahead.
I mean, if I'm upset with him, of course, don't touch me. You know, don't touch me. Don't come close to me. You know, just stay on your side and I'll stay on my side. Of course. So, yeah, if I'm upset with him, I don't want anything to do with him. So,
okay. I love your honesty. I'm not gonna even give you a chance to speak. I want to hear from Fumi because I already know we know what the guys are gonna say. So
yeah, so I think that the question goes to the fundamental differences I think between most men, generally speaking, and women. Women, everything is so interconnected.
Yes.
You know, so if I'm upset in one area, sometimes it seeps into other areas. Men tend to compartmentalize. So, you know, me upset here, but that don't mean it ain't going down tonight.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's one of the interesting things about God and how he made us, because women are so interconnected. You can't have that level of intimacy. And I'm not even necessarily talking about sexual intimacy. You can't have that without resolving your issues. So it forces, you know, or it causes men to say, okay, let's try to fix the issue as opposed to sweep it under the rug and think that everything else will be okay here later. It just doesn't work like that for most women. So, you know, for us, yeah, it's interconnected. And if I'm not right, if I'm upset about something, it's not going down. And if that means we need to talk till the sun comes up, that's what's going to happen. But you ain't touching
Holding
me.
us hostage.
yeah, I mean,
Right, facts.
hold on. I'm gonna let the guys talk. But I will say that I totally agree. It's so difficult because the type of beings we are is that we're interconnected. That's what you said. Everything affects everything. That's why, you know, foreplay has to begin in the morning, sending me a text, sending me pictures, not nude pictures, but, you know, just doing what you got to do to kind of get me there. Likewise, once you get me there, it's very difficult to bring me up. Like, I need strawberries, I need whipped cream, I need chocolate, I need all of these things just to, you know what I mean? Because and it's not like I'm intentionally saying no, but my body is not responding to those types of things. So, guys, I know I said I didn't want you to talk about this, but I do have a question for you. Can we talk about the journey of the first time with your wife? The first time with your wife. Because I think a lot of people are like, on the wedding day, you know, it's going down. And that's a great thing because, you know, people have anticipated this moment. They've waited for this moment. They've prayed about this moment. They've groomed themselves. They've polished up. So what happened?
Plead the fifth.
I know, right? I don't even know if I want to relive
I don't know if I want you to relive it.
Do we need to go back? Like, okay.
No, we don't want you to be too explicit, but just give us a general idea. Because people, and the reason why I'm asking this question is because people have a false sense of the first time because of what they've seen. And it doesn't even mean the first time because you've never even had sex before, or you have, but the first time with your wife. Femi, go.
So it's very weird. It's like prior to that night, right? I mean, when you're getting closer to like we're all even talking trash to each other. Oh, you gonna learn today. You know, that kind of
You gonna learn today.
You know, we're talking smack and all of that stuff. But then, at least for us in our experience, when that night came, it was a little difficult because maybe I'll let you speak to it too. I don't think the church does a very good job about talking to couples or even singles about sex and expectations of sex. We do a good job of saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And that was kind of like a psychological blocker for her. It's like, oh, we're married, but why do I feel like I'm doing something dirty? You know, and I'm the kind of person like, you know, I'm not just in there to get mine, you know what I'm saying? I want her to enjoy it too. So it's like, it was kind of tough because that was kind of like a blocker for her. Like, it's like, no, it's okay, you know, and all of that. So we found out that we had to, and this, even if you're not having those type of issues, it's something you should do when you're having sex anyway. communication.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, being patient and okay, let's talk through it, and tell me what you like. I'll touch you here. You like that?
Okay.
Yeah.
No. You know what I'm saying? You like that?
Okay, it's getting hot in here.
No. Okay, how about that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
then it definitely got better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Coach D.
Well,
He had to close his eyes.
Now you don't have
it's one of those things that you're so excited about, and you're like, yeah, I'm about to be that one, and then you get there, you ain't that one, and then it's like, man, woo, we're gonna have to work on this. I'm almost stopped there.
Let's leave it there. Okay. All right. I'm even nervous to turn it over to you, but I'll do it.
Wow, that's all I can say. No, it taught me a new level of patience. Like,
Look at his eyes.
I'm just trying to relieve those.
You don't have to relive it, baby. You don't have to relive it. Don't
We
don't
thank
relive
God
it.
for where we are.
We
Let's-
thank God. And I will say though, I definitely got to give a shout out to One Flesh Ministry, because we all went through One Flesh Ministry, and the minister in charge of One Flesh Ministry makes sure that sex is a topic of study.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was
Yeah.
when we took the class 12, 10, 9 years ago, and
Yeah.
even till today. And I do know that Pastor Eru does a really good job saying, he might not go into the details, but
Very
he does a good
practical.
job talking about it
Absolutely.
and saying that
Yeah.
this is good, you're married, express yourself, do whatever, swing from chandelier. Do it. He's really good about that.
Right.
And I didn't expect that going into a premarital class, because I thought it was going to be all about communication, save, plan for this. But I think that also opened up an opportunity for us to have conversations before. Now, we didn't know what we were going to get to when we got there, but it is something that needs to be talked about and needs to be handled with care. Right. Because depending on what the person you with has been through prior to, or what is currently going through, psychological, physical, emotional, mental, it requires some work. And I think it's important for us to know that. I know some people, they have kits and suggestions and all types of things to help people through that process, but it is a process. Would you all agree?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I just ask something?
Yeah.
Ask the ladies here. So, what do you feel about when you're not in the mood, and he wants it, So, I mean, do you just go ahead and
I know you didn't cross your name.
I'm sorry, I had to
even
cross
though
something.
you're not, but you just want to satisfy him,
I think it's important to understand that you're not always going to be in the mood, right? More times than none, they're going to be in the mood more than you, because you're tired. There's so much going on, and not just like taking care of the kids, because even before kids came, you're doing a lot. And, the women sitting here today, I would say we're successful. Granted, there's still room for growth, but we're all successful in what we do. And that takes time. It takes energy, mentally, emotionally. So most times I'm exhausted. But because I know, he's a man, and they have needs, and their sexual drive sometimes varies from ours. And I hear that as we get to a different age, ours is going to be higher than theirs. Yeah. I always try to be sensitive to that, but I sometimes let him know, like, babe, I'm tired. Just give me like 20 minutes. Let me just prepare my mind, because I'm exhausted right now. I also participated in, and I keep plugging One Flesh, but this is the platform that we're on. They did have a marriage conference a couple of months ago, and one of the guest speakers just broke down the different types of sex. Some of it is going to be spontaneous. Some of it has to be scheduled, and I want us to talk about scheduling too. Some of it has to be scheduled. Some of it is going to be a quickie. Like, I don't need all of that. Just get what you got to get, go, and let me get in the shower so I can go to work. So I'm open to that, but I also communicate to him so he knows that, not that I'm sacrificing, but he knows that I'm willing to do what I got to do to make you happy.
Yeah, and I echo everything that you've just said. For us, I think I've learned over the years too that, if there are different types of, levels of intimacy. So like sometimes you are in a mood, sometimes you're not, and you have to do it sacrificially in that time. But I think setting those expectations going in so that he's not also coming in thinking it's going to be this like mind-blowing thing and like, no, I'm tired. So like I think setting that, saying I'm willing to do it, but like, you know, tonight may not be all that you think it, but you know, you go ahead, do what you got to do. I'm good. The other thing is that I have learned also not to just say I'm not in the mood and leave it at that, but to say, you know what, babe, I am really tired today, but trust me, Friday is going to be on a poppin'. You know?
And that is amazing.
Like giving him something to look forward
that
to.
is so amazing.
And that works for you, Femi.
No, yeah, because it's like, okay, you said the right thing there. It's like, it's one thing to hear, "Oh, you know, I'm just tired, whatever. But whenever she says, you know what, can I get a rain check? Like she always keeps to that rain check. And when she tells me, like, you know what, come Friday, I'm like, oh, okay. I can hold on.
Just wait a little bit.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think? As far as, you know, the whole tired, taking a rain check, does that work for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think you've also done a very good job of trying to, because some of us have very high sex drive.
Some of us.
Some of us. So she's, but you've done a good job of actually, you know, in those moments like, you know, I'm sorry, babe, you know, can we do a rain check? Or, oh, you know what, we have a lunch break now. You want to quickie, like, so sometimes I'm like,
You make it sound like I'm hungry.
I can get
You
some.
make it sound like I'm hungry.
I'm like, I can get some right now. So, and then those times like, you know, like, don't worry, I got you tonight. So those moments I'm like, okay. If I'm sleeping, wake me up, baby. Like,
Yeah, same thing.
So rain checks work.
Yeah, completely understand. Because, you know, a working mom with 3 kids, you know, you have to understand as a man. And, you know, maybe early in marriage I may not have understood as much, but as we've grown, yeah, you gotta take and wait. You know, you take your wins where you get them.
What about scheduling, though?
Nothing wrong with that. I don't think. I think you have to be realistic with the seasons of life that you go through.
Yeah.
And as you said, you're a working mom. You've got kids. Same thing with all of us here. So I think having that conversation with your spouse and saying, "Listen, babe, you know what? I think generally when I look at my schedule, I don't know. Saturdays tend to be light, so that would be a good time for date night. We go. You know, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Schedule it. You know, ahead of time. Or maybe, you know what, babe? I'm taking a couple of days off from work. You know what, I'm going to clear my schedule for you. Like, whatever you need to do, because it's not going to be as spontaneous. It's unrealistic to think that it's going to always be spontaneous at every stage in your marriage. You're going to go through things. Your body changes. Let's not even talk about kids. As a woman, we go through different things. Your body changes, your mood. For men, you go through different things too, like stress at work and that sort of thing, finances, whatever that may be. So I think you need to schedule it if you can. I think that's a realistic thing to do.
Yeah. Okay. What about, this is something that I've heard from men. I think for women it's a little bit different. But I heard men have like a sex clock. I don't know if I'm titling it right, but essentially is this man cannot, after 3 days of not having sex, he becomes a beast. So is that true? And women, do we know what their clock is? Do we know that, okay, for me, for example, Femi, after 4 days, if I don't satisfy this man, it's about to be a problem. Or with Dakwa, after 10 days, or with my husband, after 1 day. You know, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But guys, is there a clock? And women, do we know what that clock is for our husband? I'm gonna let Coach D answer first. Do you know it?
I don't know if there's a clock. I know that when I want it, I just want I just want it. You know, I will say that, you know, after that time of the month that, you know, the ladies go through it. Oh, that's long.
I know, right? I'm like, is it 3 days, 5 days?
That's a long. I know.
Spiritual warfare.
I know. Yeah. Okay. So that might be the.
Do you know his clock?
I feel like I do. We've never discussed this before, but I feel like every
Fill
3
me in.
days.
Oh, I didn't know.
Every 3 days.
Okay,
you
but you know it.
Yeah,
you feel it. What about you guys?
I believe we do have a clock. It's different for, obviously, every
couple.
man.
Yeah.
But when you start, all of a sudden, you know, even typing, you're making so many mistakes. Your body's just shaking up.
Like you're a crack addict.
Like, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, you just start snapping and all of that stuff. But I think the key thing is, and that's why it's not really about being spontaneous all the time. Really scheduling it. If the guy knows it's coming, that's okay. We can hold on. You know what I'm saying? If I just know that it's coming,
I mean, I can tell because he gets more handsy. I mean, he's very affectionate to begin with, but like I can tell. Oh, okay, I need to talk this off a little bit. So
okay, go ahead, babe. I can. Oh, definitely, I can tell when things start happening in the kitchen. I'm like, okay, it's time. I'm doing laundry, and I'm like, whoa. What is happening? I know. He has no problem expressing that with me. And I think it's not a specific time every time, but I do know, when he's getting that itch, I can feel it. And, one of the things I heard someone say is that the happiness that you have in your marriage can be reflected in your sex life. So how often, and understanding that there's season, but how often you have sex, how much you enjoy it, and the communication during sex, that all is almost a reflection of how your marriage is. And I actually think that's true. I never heard it phrased that way, but I strongly believe it because, when things are going well, man, it's going well 2, 3, 4 times a day, kind of well, and then other times it's like, baby, bye. You get one for this week, But I think that's something for us to, acknowledge that sex is something that is needed. It's something that God created, and it's something that's supposed to bring us together. I love when people describe sex as worship because, it is worship. Now, we might not hit the high note every time, but it's a form of worship. Has there ever been a time, like, do you all talk about, even till today, do you guys talk about some things that are kind of awkward? Or maybe not during or after, like once it's done? Do you try new things? Do you talk about if it's awkward or not? Are you open to that, or are you pretty much like, we found our groove, let's just stick to it? We don't need to mix anything up. We don't need to do anything different. Let's just stick to what we're doing.
Yeah, I listen to like a lot of podcasts and about marriages and sex, and even the conference this summer. And I forgot his name, but
Pastor Kingsley.
Yes. So every time I forced him to listen to it. So because you have to. Talking about sex is something that we've never really talked about because it could get a little bit uncomfortable, especially for men. But I've been trying to get him to have us talk more about it and telling him what he could maybe do better or what I could do better. So we're starting to talk about it more.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, like I like it when she calls me daddy.
Come on now.
Hello.
Oh, when I say daddy, and daddy.
No. Just trying to move all the way down.
No.
Okay, so do you think, like, I think for us, we're open to trying new things as long as we don't get hurt. That's my thing. It's like,
I think we got something from One Flesh, this vibrating thing one time. I was like,
we don't even know how to use it. We were like, what?
Trying to figure out how to use it. I'm like, yeah, but this ain't going to work.
Where does it go? We couldn't even figure it out. We were like,
thank God for One Flesh, but you got to be careful where you keep that stuff. Too. You got kids, daddy. I think the main thing is communication because, again, men and women we're just so different. Like, the thing that you've mastered, she loves this. All of a sudden, what happened last week? Last week, this thing was like, now you don't, you want, okay.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly communicate. Like,
ask, yes.
Yeah, ask, yes.
Yeah, that's key because, again, speaking to how women's bodies change, after I had kids, there were certain things that I I used to like. I'm like, please do not ever do this. At least, maybe while I'm, in a certain, space. But I'm just kind of like, it changes. So it's important to constantly talk about it.
Yeah.
Just so that okay, is this working? Is it not? Okay, how can I get better? As with everything, you always want feedback.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make it so technical or clinical, but you want to know if you're meeting your spouse's needs, and you also want to communicate your needs so they can meet it too.
Absolutely. And you talked about children, and I want us to shift to children now, not just because it's a result of intimacy and sex, but because we all have children. Thank God that we have children. How has our marriage changed since children have came into the mix? And I'll let you start first this time.
I mean, now, it's more learning that you have to adjust and not expect things to be the same way anymore. And I think I'd seen an analogy growing up where there was a pastor preaching. I was at a wedding, and he was talking about how the husband and wife were together, and that when kids, so husband passed me the newspaper, he's able to pass it to his wife. And then when kids come into the picture, there's a little bit of distance in passing the newspaper. And then when another kid comes into the picture, there's more distance. So it takes more energy, more effort to make sure that our communication is still working. And for us, I mean, now we get intimate like 4 in the morning. Like those times that work.
I will make sure not to call her.
But it helps that, and for us it's because we feel, even though they are children, we believe they're children God gave us. So we have to do the best we can as parents to make sure we're pointing them in the right direction.
Do you think it has changed the dynamics of our marriage in general? Not just the intimacy part, not just the sex
part,
but the dynamics of marriage.
Now we just can't get up and go. We've been trying to have a vacation or a staycation for the past 3 months now, but you have to plan like, when do we get help? So it's changed the dynamic, but not in a bad way. It's more just learning to adjust as we go.
Okay. What about you guys?
Yeah, I would say similarly, we have to be more intentional about making sure that when we communicate, we're not just communicating about the kids and about their schedules, but we're also checking in with each other.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of intention now to make sure that, I'm checking in with you. How was your day? It's not just, this schedule needs to be done. This person needs to be picked up and taken here. And, because sometimes when kids come in, it can very easily become about the kids and less about you. So there's a lot of intentionality there. As you said, kids do, I thank God, I'm so grateful, but it changes things, again, it's about them. So you want to just be intentional about that communication.
Yeah, and it's definitely different, but it's not different bad. It's just like, okay, now we got to plan more. Now we got to be more strategic. I mean, at one point I was like, okay, is this it's like my children just want to block me. Like, at one point I actually tested it. I stood by the door and I did like this. As soon as I'm touching their mom, somehow, somewhere, they just show up. I was like, what kind of demonic?
What you guys doing?
Yeah, is this a demonic thing? Like, what is
They jump in the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started locking our doors.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like she said, it's just being more intentional.
I want to ask you all this question, but with a twist, because we all have 2 children, and you all are veterans in the sense that you have 3. So has the dynamic changed, and does it change each time? So does it change when it goes from 1 to 2? Because we just had 2 initially. They went from 1 to 2. We started off with 2. You all went from 1 to 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that everything still stays the same in terms of you have to be intentional about a lot of things, because the dynamic of the marriage, yes, it does change from when you have one. Before, we used to just get up and go. You used to just get up and go, do whatever, but there's planning involved now. So really the only thing that changes after you have the first one, the second one, the third one, or however many is, what other is your level of planning, right? Your level of planning is what changes. But overall, you have 1, you have 2, you have the third one is almost similar in terms of everything else, but just your intentionality and your level of planning, I think, is what.
Can you talk about your journey, your journey to having children? As far as what was it like? Were there intentions to wait? Did you just want to jump in? How was that journey from being, newlyweds to then deciding to have children?
Well, with us, personally, I would say both of us, we didn't really intend to wait. We were, if God wanted us to have it, it would happen. So we didn't really try to stop it. So, and luckily for us, after a year, like exactly after a year, of marriage, we got pregnant. So, and then it's funny because after we had our first child, I was ready for the second one, but a year went by, another year went by, it didn't happen, So, yeah, with us, I never really, I was never the type to say, oh, wait, because at the end of the day, it's God, God decides when he wants to give you a child. So with us, there was really no waiting. It just, if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. So.
Okay. Do you want to talk about our journey?
Sure. I think for us, we wanted to wait because we said we wanted to, we wanted to travel and do a lot of things. But then hindsight, now I'll say we should have started. Because ended up we waited, I think we wanted to wait for about 2 years and then start trying, and then the process was starting to try, and I don't know if you remember this, but we almost had like a miscarriage type thing, where we hadn't seen. Man, I'm just thinking about it.
I know you're going back.
But it was tough because those seasons where you're trying to find out the calendar of when to. Talk about scheduling sex. So it became, for me, it became a chore, and it took the fun out of the intimacy of marriage. And I was just like, man, you had to try certain times and things like that. So the journey, it was tough. We thank God for where we are today, but it was tough. But it was. I wouldn't say maybe I don't even know if it put a strain on our relationship.
I don't think it put a strain. Thankfully, because, we had a good friendship, and, we didn't see ourselves as just husband and wife, but we were really good friends, best friends to one another. We could talk about a lot of things. And one of the things that I know is that we both went through emotional roller coasters, but he made sure when I was down, he could uplift me. And I made sure when he was down, even if I felt down too, I had to put on the role of lifting him up as well. I think, the journey was just that. It was an interesting journey. But I will say we didn't let that hold us back from living our life. Like, we still travel. We there's no point of us crying and being home. Let's go to Dubai.
And crying in Dubai.
So we made sure that while we were in that season of waiting, we were enjoying our marriage, because we saw a lot of people who having a child put so much strain on their relationship that it started to divide them. And we didn't want that. We said, okay, when God says it's time, it's time. But in the meantime, let's live our best life, because when they come, we do know some things are going to change. We didn't know how much. You can never prepare for how much your life is going to change when children come. But I will say that the 6 years, let's say 5 years, because we can see 5 years after, we enjoyed our marriage. We made that, even though some days we would cry, crying in Miami just felt so much better than crying than crying in Silver Spring. You know what I mean? And we, going to the spa in Jamaica was just so much better than going to the spa up in Fulton, Maryland. So we were intentional about, yes, we are not where we want to be, but we have so many other blessings in our life. Let's just enjoy. Yeah. How was your journey?
Yeah, it's strange. Like, for me, I always wanted kids, but I really thank God for this girl that God put in my life, because one day I was even thinking about it, and I just turned to her and I said, if we never had kids, it's not like there was a problem or anything like that. It just occurred to me, like, if we never have kids, I would be okay. Like, I was shocked that I could even make a statement like that. So, but yeah, like, the journey of having kids, our first one wasn't an issue. Like, when we said, okay, we wanted to have kids, we tried, we got pregnant. One of the things we said, we were one of those couples that said, hey, we want to spend time before having kids, getting to know each other, like having time in our marriage. I think we had planned for 2, but it ended up being 5 because she had to go to
5 kids or 5 years?
No, 5 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. I wasn't sure if more were coming. I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
So, yeah, it ended up being 5 years because she wanted to go back to school and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
The second time around, we thought, oh, this is, want to get pregnant. It took us a while to have our second child. And it's funny, that's why it's kind of important to be careful what you say to people. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just our
Some people are well-meaning.
Yeah, they mean well, but when they say, what's going on? Like, where are the babies?
Yeah.
Or like, do you want us to pray for you? On people need to be more sensitive about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I actually wanted us to talk about that because we each talked about a little, a struggle or something at some stage. What were some of the things that were mentioned that either encouraged you or wasn't an encouragement? And can you remember anything, one thing that really stuck out to you? I can remember something that stuck out to me, positively. I remember when Pastor Gandhi, one day he just saw me. This is before, we had the boys. And he was just like, let me pray with you. And people usually go to Pastor Gandhi to pray for him. To pray for you. But he just said, let me just pray for you. So he prayed for me and he said, you're not getting a lot of pressure from your family, but you are pressuring yourself.
Yeah.
And I said,
Wow.
You know what, that's right. Because, our parents, we're pretty open with our parents. I have an open relationship with my mom. Like, I tell her, not in a rude way, but I tell her what I feel. And I tell her, how I feel. I've adopted that with his mom, too. And I think she appreciates that. So you never really know, you're never really, like, questioning what I'm thinking. I'm just going to tell you. I might package it in a way that's different, but I'll tell you, we never got a lot of pressure from our immediate family.
Yeah, no.
Not the immediate one. But when he said that, I said, why are you putting pressure on yourself? Why? When God wants it to happen, it will happen. So Pastor Gandhi saying that to me really released a lot of tension and burden that was self-inflicted, right?
Wow.
I put that on myself, but I never realized it until he said that. So that was very helpful. And, he's my spiritual father. I took it, really, really highly when he said that. And I went back to rethink and, figure out how my life was. Now, if it was somebody else that said it, I probably would have been like, you don't even understand what I'm going through right now. Can you just get out of my face? But for me, that was very helpful and comforting. What about you, positive or negative?
Too many negatives, but some, like Fumi said, I think thinking about it now, some of them were meaning well, but people just come up to, what are you guys waiting for, You guys ought to be traveling all over the world, and I know we had a rehearsed response was that we're still in our honeymoon phase. But the truth of the matter is they didn't know that we went back home to cry sometimes. Yeah. But they said those things and they were hurtful, like, what are you guys waiting for? You're just jumping all over the place, traveling all over the world. And I'm thinking to them, I remember one young person came to us and said, you guys are married now. When's the baby coming? And they were like, do you guys know what we just went through? So, but you try and hide and shield it. So, but that's just.
Yeah, and I think the key thing about what you said, we talked about how we cry in Dubai, right? But I think for us, we didn't want that to limit us. So people are seeing us as jet setters, right? Not knowing that, not that we were trying to escape the world, but we wanted to use this season instead of just crying and praying. And maybe God doesn't want this to come through until this time. So instead of not that you shouldn't pray about it, but you're focused too much on tomorrow instead of enjoying today. And that's one of the things we wanted to do. What about you guys? Positive or negative?
Really, honestly, like you said, I think the pressure really came from myself. After my first child, I always wanted a 2-year gap to my kids. So when it didn't happen, I put the pressure on myself. Honestly, really, I tuned everybody out, and the pressure was more for me. My parents and my husband, very encouraging, but the pressure was more from myself, saying, I don't want, I want them to be close. I want all my kids to be 2 years apart, So the pressure really came from me. But,
And, well, I'll let you say something before I say.
No, I agree. For me, too, I think the pressure was, not necessarily from, what Femi told me, and actually this was very early on in our marriage when he said that, it always was freeing because I knew we were a team, so no matter what happened, even if we couldn't have kids, not that there was anything wrong, I'm not even sure why he said what he said, but, we are on the same page. So that in itself was freeing. I didn't feel any pressure from external, from internal within my family. It was more so really self-inflicted. But I will say generally, for me, what was comforting and what was encouraging wasn't necessarily what anyone said, but I just turned to scripture. I just said, God, in the end, God makes everything beautiful in its own time. So I just held on to that personally, and I was like, you know what? For me, it's going to happen when God says it will happen. And if it doesn't, it's okay. You've got one child to focus on. Focus on that child, focus on your marriage, and when God makes it happen, it will. And that helped, that encouraged me.
I love that because in retrospect, with everything that we've done, I think, and you all can agree or disagree, our children came at the right time.
Absolutely.
They came at the right time for us. And it couldn't have happened at a better time. One last question about children, and then we're going to move on. Who disciplines, and how do you guys come to an agreement on discipline? I'll let Coach D go first because he seems so calm. He just has a calm spirit about himself. Do you even yell at the kids at all?
Man, what? I do all the discipline in the house, yeah.
And was that talked about beforehand, or it just kind of merged to be that?
To it, right? Yeah, it really kind of merged into it. But I know that the way I grew up, my father was a disciplinarian, and my mother would discipline, but it was a little more, just make sure you're so growing up in that type of way, I think is just kind of what stayed with me, and so that's how we do it in our household.
And it's been working.
Yes, it's been working. So far, so good.
Okay. All right. What about you guys?
For us, Femi is the disciplinarian. I discipline the kids too, but we have different methods. And we didn't talk about it before marriage or anything. It just kind of worked its way out that way. But I think we have a good balance because there are some times where I think maybe that you need to here's the thing. My oldest daughter, Angie, she has a very similar personality to mine. She's also an empath. So, growing up.
You keep saying empath. Can you tell us, what does that mean?
Someone who feels deeply and who is very empathetic and who takes on emotions sometimes. Like, sometimes you feel other people's pain a lot, and so you have to draw certain boundaries so that you don't, go crazy. But, growing up, my dad was a disciplinarian. My dad was fun to be around, loud, boisterous kind of person. But when he spoke with that bass, everybody knew who was talking. So for me, my dad, I don't remember, I think maybe once or twice where I got spanked. But when if he was upset and he raised his voice, I would shrink back. And it just made me kind of like, ooh. So that dynamic between my dad and I don't want that for them. Yeah. And I noticed that when if he raises his voice, and not to say he's yelling or shouting, but, he gets passionate, it's trying to be firm. I can see her automatically, even her body language, and she's already welling up. And I know kids are, in general. So I try to be the filter in a way. Sometimes she needs that, and she needs to listen. She needs to learn, you have to learn. Life is tough. You gotta take those punches sometimes and just, use it to better yourself. But there are times where I'm like, okay, go talk to her. Yes, discipline her on one hand, but draw her close with the other. Go let her know that this is why you said what you said, because those things were kind of lacking for me growing up. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important, too, to understand that it's not just the way you discipline your children. It's also you have to make it tailor-made because each child is different. Yeah. Like, when I do that with Angie, our firstborn, I had to, like Fumi said, okay, I have to realize, okay, bring the bass down and try to talk to her. The other one, Corey, I could be going off and she's, but I, she too wants to go back. Like, this girl ain't scared.
She wants to get her own word.
But she wants to argue.
But you're not listening. You're not listening to me.
Oh my gosh. So just understanding that it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And using our strengths, okay, I could be the good cop, bad cop type routine.
Yeah.
Sometimes I gotta close my eyes, like, you know what, he's doing it, but it's for the best. And I'ma just, swallow it and just distract myself with something else.
Yeah, sorry. And I wanted to add to that too. Like, sometimes I might not always agree with what he's saying, but I always want to make sure that we are one voice.
Yeah.
When it comes to the kids, I don't,
Yes.
I don't want to go behind and say, oh yeah, don't listen to your daddy. No, So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are both in sync and it's one voice.
Absolutely. And those, we never have those discussions in front of the kids.
Yeah.
We always present one united front, and then behind closed doors, we're like, that was a bit much.
Yeah. Go ahead, babe.
So when we're dating or about to get married, we were like, oh, I'm going to be the good cop, you're going to be the bad cop.
I want to be the cool dad. That's what he said. I want to be the cool dad.
But now, so my sons, the other day, they were describing to me, guess who's back, mommy? Guess, no, that person that spanks us when we're naughty.
He was like,
how you describe
and he goes and gets the stick? I'm like, oh my goodness. And afterwards, he was like, babe, is this how they're going to be describing me to the teacher? I'm like, yeah, probably. But, we kind of tag team. One of the things that I think we do really well, we switch it up. So we're not always going to, sometimes we'll actually go to the corner. Sometimes we'll go to the room. Sometimes we'll bring out the stick and threaten you. Sometimes we'll, spank you or whatever. We're not against spanking, but we don't abuse it. Yeah. I think the one thing that we do really well is we explain to them. Wow. So after they get their punishment, we say, come back here. Okay, what happened? I was crying? No. Why did you get in trouble? Because I lied. Exactly. Once they understand it, because I think growing up, we didn't really get that. They didn't explain to us why. Yes. They were just like, you are stupid, you are this, you are that. And then you're like, you don't understand until the second, third, or fourth time that you get, then you like, oh, so they don't want me to play with fire. Okay, I get it now.
I love that, That is so true, because our parents never explained to us why, It was just do as I say. So I definitely am more intentional about explaining to them, like, this is why you shouldn't do this.
I love it. Okay, so I saved the best for last. Money, 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 money. Why am I the only one happy about this? We're talking about finances. Okay. How do you guys handle your finances? Like, is there one person that sorts out all the bills, not as far as the financial component, but like handling the management of the bills? Is this something that you guys do together? Like you sit down together, go through the line item budget? Or is it something that, okay, Laya is like, all right, babe, this is what we're doing this month. How does that work for your family as far as finances? Because, and the reason why I'm asking is because data shows that finances is one of the major reasons why couples divorce. Either mismanagement, not enough, or too much. Because, sometimes we ask for a lot of money and then you realize that money, more problems, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you guys manage your finances?
So Dapo. Dapo loves to be in charge. That's just him. That's his personality. He loves to be in charge of everything. So before we got married, he told me that he would be the one to manage the finances. And that was okay with me. So we have one account that, that account is used for everything, for bills, for everything. And then we have separate accounts where, you do whatever you want to do with that account, If you want to give money to your family, friends, you can do that with that. But we have one joint account that, everything that has to do with our family, everything comes out from that account, and then we have our own. But for the most part, he manages.
Okay.
He pays all the bills, and he, of course, we have discussions about it, but he manages it all.
Okay, so in your household, one person manages everything. And I like the fact that you brought up the joint. Like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but I was going to ask you that later. I'm glad you talked about the joint account and a separate account. Has that been what was in place from the very beginning? And it's worked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, how do you guys manage your account?
Sure, I can try. No, it's definitely a joint thing now, but definitely also leveraging each other's strengths. Like Fumi is very task-oriented, and the creative that I am, sometimes I'm just like, it's weird. I think also I developed something during the time, like Fumi mentioned that there was a time that she had to quit her job so that she could go to pharmacy school. Like, it was a struggle going to her full-time job and getting ready for those exams and things like that. So I took on, the financial burden of the home. I was fine with that. I wanted her to fulfill her dreams. But then we got into this time where I now lost my job. And so I just developed it, because after a while I was like, look, I can't die. I was like, look, man, tell him I ain't got it, man. You know, like, hey, I'm not ignoring you. I just I ain't got it, you know. So somehow, even when things got better with our jobs, I just kind of developed that attitude where it's like, I don't want to, because I just got tired of dealing with it. Like, it was a very hard time for us, like, dealing with people calling the house, or you need to, or you have to pay this and all of that. So I just developed this thing where it's like, look, man, I ain't got it, you know. So I just didn't want to deal with it. And with her, she's very like, okay, let's do this. So we had to have like a meeting of the minds where it's like, okay, you know what, you might not want to deal with it, but let's work together. Let me itemize everything that we need to do and all of that stuff. I will say what's really helping us now too, because budgeting is so important, right? We used to fight about it a lot, but now it's like, it's even a joy to say, okay, the money is going here. Money, what we spend, how much on takeout? Okay, that's got to change. You know that. Also, we actually started seeing like a financial coach, and it's. I mean, I don't want to go all political now. Like even just people of color, like there's just so much information that we don't know. Yeah. Right? Like financial shelters, like where to put your money, being tax efficient, like all of these things that the information is out there, but we just don't know. So sometimes reaching out to a financial advisor or someone who knows about all of this to actually teach you. And so we've been very, our main thing is we want to fulfill that scripture where it says a wise man leaves what, an inheritance for his children's children. Yeah. And we want that cycle to stop with us. Like we want our children to be financially like literate. Yeah, I understand.
Absolutely. I just have to agree with that. You know, even for us, we recently started with the financial advisor, about a year or so ago. You know, and the same scripture in mind, preparing for your children's children, like, you know, preparing for the future, not just looking at the now, but worrying about, hey, when my kids have kids, let me make sure I build up this inheritance, you know, so that they're good, right?
I love it. I love it.
In our house, so what helped us before we got married was we took Financial Peace University. And from there, we figured out who was going to be managing the finances. I love to spend. She likes to. Okay, so we had that joint understanding going into the marriage that she could handle the finances. Just like you guys, we have one account that everything comes into. And then we have our individual accounts that we do all our shopping and help family members out of those accounts. But we have one account where the bills, the children's school fees, everything comes into. And I think it's worked for us over the years, especially now. When we got married, she was making twice my salary. Like, I was just trying to come up in my career. But, you know, thank God now I'm making, 3 times your salary? I just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Put that out there.
But you know what? That was my prayer, you know. I always prayed that I wanted my husband to be the head of our household, not just spiritually, emotionally, but financially. I don't want that burden only on myself, and I want him to feel like, you know, financially he's the head. I never held it over him, like no one, until, you know, I would never tell people that. He's the one that's always telling people I made more than him. It doesn't really matter, and I still respected him. I don't respect him more now than I did then. The respect level is still the same, but my prayer was always, Lord, I want some, not only triple, you will make 10 times more than me. Amen. Because we need to spend that money. But, you know, that was always my prayer, because I knew for him, it was important, not so that he can hover it over me, but because it was important for him to feel like he was providing. And that was one of the things that he grew up that was important for him. So that was my prayer, like, Lord, I know we're struggling right now. I know he's trying to come up, but Lord, I need him to just not only meet me, but surpass me, because that's what he needs. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't love him any less, but I'm happy that he's able to tell everybody. He couldn't say this a couple of years ago because, you know, it was difficult, but now he's able to do it, and I thank God for that. So I'm happy.
But I like what they mentioned about the financial advisor. I think that's something we actually need to take. So we've done well managing and saving and building up retirement. But I think thinking for legacy as well. I think the next step, which would be. And
the great thing about a financial advisor also is that we also took FPU, Financial Peace University. But and there were lots of great nuggets in there, but a financial advisor tailors things to you. Yeah. So like even just the other day we were doing retirement planning, but it goes beyond just 401k. There are other aspects that we didn't even know. I'm like, oh, okay, there's certain things we needed to consider. Just a lot of wisdom that is tailored to you. What is your specific income? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? When do you want to retire? What is the money that, so there are lots of, and again, I know I'm just going through some basic things, but there are so many other things. So I think getting a financial coach is super important in your journey to being debt-free or, leaving a legacy, whatever that may be for you.
Guys, I've had so much fun today. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. I got, I love activities. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions, right? The first question is, describe your spouse with just one word. I know it's hard. Just one word. Let's just say one sentence to describe your spouse. Really quickly, I see you guys thinking. You seem like you got it together already.
One word, everything.
Everything.
One word, selfless.
Priceless.
Amazing. Not amazing, but amazing. That's what he is to me.
I want 2 words.
Okay, I knew you were going to be, I knew Lyle was going to be the one to say 2. Okay.
He is dependable and hardworking.
I have to take another one from him, my everything.
I love it. I love it. If we were to give one advice, and I want you guys to talk amongst yourself, as a couple, what is the one advice you would give anyone who is starting their dating journey or even their marriage journey over the things you've learned the past 9, 12, 10 years you've been married? One advice to someone as a team. So this is going to take teamwork. I want you guys to talk about it. Okay. Time up. All right, we'll go first.
We'll say, in this journey, when you get to that point when you want to get married, marry your best friend.
Okay.
Sorry, we got like 4 things.
Oh,
It's going to be quick.
Okay.
First thing is, never underestimate the power of prayer. You got to pray. You got to hinge your decisions on the Word of God. The second thing is you need to ask questions. Ask the right questions. The third thing is you need to shine your eyes. Observe. You say that again. Shine your eyes. Go markets. Because you need to observe. You need to see how they act when things are good. When they go through adversity, how do they react? Those things tell you a lot about the person. And the fourth, I would say, is get wise counsel. You need people who have been through things in life to be able to, especially people who are discerning, to tell you, you know what? This thing about this wise, godly counsel. Please don't cast your, don't go asking, different kinds of people. No, have the people in your life that you trust. Get godly counsel from them. Those are the 4, I would say, pivotal things to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Seek godly counsel is really it. Because a lot of times you can seek the wrong counsel and they give you the wrong advice, and all of a sudden you go into the wrong thing. But yeah, for us, it's really seeking the right people, godly counsel.
Okay.
Yeah, and also praying.
Yeah.
Like Fumi said, pray. It's so important. Prayer.
I mean, y'all had 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 1. We followed the rules, but I agree with everything you all said. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. Praying and having godly counsel, shining your eyes, all of that, great things. One of the things we really did, and this has helped us throughout our journey in our marriage, is to hold on to a scripture. The scripture that we held on to is Genesis 18:14. Go ahead, Pastor.
Is there anything?
Speak it into the mic. Let them hear you.
Is there anything too hard for God?
That was something we held on to, because in marriage you're going to have ups and downs. So holding on to a scripture for us, regardless of what was going on, helped us through a lot. Do you all have a scripture that you guys hold on to?
Yeah, Philippians 4:6-7. Be anxious, and don't be anxious in anything, but in everything, with petition, with thanksgiving.
Yes.
Present your request to God.
Okay.
And the peace
Yes.
of God.
Yes.
That's
Hallelujah.
surpasses all
Hallelujah.
All right,
Peace of
Bishop.
God. It transcends all understanding.
Yeah.
You know, all understanding. We'll take
So that's
care
what
of
you guys held on to.
That's what tells me that all the time.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I'm always worried about something. I'm always anxious about everything, and he's always
Quoting that
quoting
scripture.
that scripture. Yeah.
I love it. You guys?
The reason I got so excited is because that's the scripture we hold on to as well. You know, there is something about prayer. I can't, like, for us, that has made all the difference. And having God's peace just come into every situation. As you said, ups and downs, twists and turns. But through it all, you know, not making decisions based on fear, but on the word of God, on faith. And unless you allow God into a situation and his peace drives the decision making, it's going to fall apart. So that has been our word too.
I love it. You know, this has been great. I've had a wonderful time. I feel like, you know, we've had a date night today in church. I do know that the One Flesh Ministry has something that they want us to do before we close up officially. So I'm going to turn it over to the HOD.
Jizzle in the house.
Lala Akingbade. You know, the whole idea of collaborating with Ignite and One Flesh was just to make sure we give people an opportunity to see what real things happen in marriage. You know, Instagram doesn't do a good job, you know, selling all the great things that happen. But there are a lot of things that happen, and I think we talked about that today. Yeah. So we're going to I'm going to turn it over to her, and then we'll close out officially
Thank
after.
you so much. I'm going to stand over here just so I'm socially distanced. But you guys, that was amazing. Thank you so much. So many different nuggets. We don't want it to end. We keep going and going and going for hours. I'm sure people will start dropping off after a while. But thank you so much, especially mentioning the last thing you said of be anxious for nothing. Because in this time, so many people are going through so much. People are losing their jobs. People are going through so much. But that scripture that you just mentioned, I believe that somebody watching has been blessed by that. So thank you so much for that. But before we go, we're going to play a little game. Okay. And each person should have whiteboards. So please pick up a whiteboard, a pen, and eraser. We're going to play like a how well do you know your spouse type thing. So what's going to happen is that I'll ask the wives a question, like, for example, I'll do one example. So who is the wife's celebrity crush? Now, the husbands would write the answer. Wives don't write. You're answering about your wife. Who is her celebrity crush? Husbands write, don't let her see. Okay. Fumi, we'll start with you. Femi, are you done writing? Okay. Fumi, say your answer, and Femi, turn your board.
I don't have any.
Okay, let's see what did you write?
What?
She's camera. Idris Elba.
She doesn't really have one. I'm taking
just
a
made
stab
one
here.
up. Okay, so that was a test round. Let's see what PM. What's your answer?
I mean, outside of my husband, he doesn't count, right? I guess I will go with Idris Elba.
Let's see. Idris Elba. Okay. All right, Coach D. Layo, actually. Layo, answer the question.
So yeah, like Yemisi said, you know, besides my husband, Idris
Elba.
I don't know what it is with
Idris Elba. Okay. Is it the British accent or? All right, that was great. So everyone gets it. All right. So we're going to ask the question that the ladies are going to write down the answer. What is his shoe size? That should be easy, right? Oh, gosh, Laios. All right, what is his shoe size? PM, let's start with you. Wait. Okay, he says it first, sorry. All right, you got it. Okay. Femi. Let's see. 12, okay. All right, Coach D, what's your shoe size?
Oh, should have got it.
Let's see. Did she get it? Oh, okay. Why do you have two different shoe sizes? Okay. Anyway, all right, so now the men are going to answer this question, or write it down at least. Jollof rice or fried rice? What does she prefer? Jollof rice or fried rice? And when you raise it up, just raise it up to the camera, not to me.
Father,
Sorry.
Father
Okay, we'll start with
heaven.
Coach D and Laya. So, Laya, what's your answer? Jollof. Did he get it? Okay. All right. PM and PWOW. PM, what's your answer? What is it?
No, it's too late.
No, too late. All right, FemD.
Oh, man.
Fumi, sorry.
This is hard. It's jollof.
Thank you.
But I
Stop
like
there.
no
Stop there. Stop there.
What
Okay.
did you write, Jollof? Okay.
All right,
Great. Okay. Another question for the guys. You guys are going to write it down as well. If she was on the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, who would her phone a friend be? Who would she phone? It could be whoever. Who would the person be? All right, we'll start on that end. So, Fumi, who would you call?
Either one of my sisters. Probably Shili.
Shile. Is Shile on there? Oh, okay. All right. Laya and Coach D. Laya, who would you call? Wumi?
Yeah.
Okay. PWOW, PM, who would you call? Doing, is it doing on there? Okay. All right, you guys know each other well. Okay. All right, now the ladies are going to write. Let's pick a good one. Would he like sweet or salty? Sweet or salty? All right, let's start with PM. PWOW, what do you like? Sweet? Did she write sweet? Okay. All right, Laya. Coach D, what do you like? Sweet. All right. Fumi. Femi.
Sweet.
Sweet. Okay. All right. All the men are sweet. All right. Let's do another. We'll just do a couple more. All right. The men are gonna write. Is your wife spontaneous or is she a planner? And this is just in general. It doesn't have to be about tickle. Spontaneous or planner? All right. Lio. Spontaneous, okay. PM. Okay, Fumi.
Oh, I'm a planner.
Planner. Okay. All right. We'll just do two more.
Thank God I didn't have to spell spontaneous. I wasn't.
All right. Ladies are gonna write. Would your husband like to stay in or go out? Pre-COVID. Pre-COVID. Stay in or go out? PWOW, would you stay in or go out? Go out, all right. Coach D, would you stay in or go out? Stay in, okay. Femi, would you go in, stay out? Sorry, go out, stay in?
Go out. Pre-COVID, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the last one. Let me look for a good one. So, all right. Who just wrote? The ladies, the men wrote, right? The ladies wrote?
Ladies wrote.
Okay, so the men will write this one to finalize everything. Name the restaurant you had your first date. Restaurant, don't discuss this. Name the restaurant you had your first date. All right, let's start with PWOW and PM. Looks like you guys are done. PM, what's the answer? Uh-oh.
I don't know the name of the restaurant, but it was a Thai restaurant in Rockville. It's something Thai, farm Thai farm.
Is that right?
Thai, yeah, Thai in
Okay.
Rockville, yes. Yeah.
All right, Femi, Fumi.
The name of the restaurant is Austin Grill. It was downtown Silver Spring. They're closed now, but that's where it was.
I think I was like, I don't remember the place.
Let's-
No, I just
okay.
restaurant in Silver Spring. I could not remember the name.
All right, Lio.
TGI Fridays in Arundel Mills.
What? No?
Thai restaurant
Thai
in
restaurant.
Virginia.
So,
Because you heard him say Thai?
so who's right? Oh boy, you guys need to
No,
go
it
back
was-
and think. All right. Thank you so much. Before we go, though, we're going to do a toast. And PM, I'm going to hand it back over to PM. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you, Lala, for putting this together. Thank you, One Flesh. Thank you, Ignite. This was Real Life, Real Stories, episode 3. 3 couples, 3 different journeys. But I'm so happy that we were able to talk, reflect, and drop some nuggets. I think we all have valued our marriage and one another so much. We are going to do a toast. So I want you all to stand, and you can just, do cheers with your spouse because of social distance. We want to, babe, I think you should do the toast because I don't even want to just, I don't want to do it.
Well, this is to many more years together, to friendship, to continued growth. And let's come back 20 years later and do this again.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Maybe we should do an extended cheers.
Cheers.
Guys, cheers.
What did y'all
Oh, they got
You in your world. Cheers. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
That's why my heart is a beat like you do.